This is the Why Me podcast with Teray Deaver. Let's go.
Hello again. Welcome to the Why Me podcast with Teray Deaver. I want to thank those of you that have allowed me to be a part of the journey of you. This is a podcast that is designed to encourage you, to inspire you, to strengthen you to be the best version of you. If you ever asked yourself, why me? As if you don't deserve it. Why me? As if you're not good enough. Why me? As if there is something inherent about you that disqualifies you, then you are in the right place. I am here to challenge you to love and to appreciate every aspect of you. The way that we do that is by one, defining who we are. Number two, we have to defend who we are. And then most importantly, we have to develop who we are if we're going to maximize our potential. As we have traveled from episodes 1 through 3, we have involved ourselves in a conversation of identity. What it is, but more importantly, who has the right to define who you are. We also went to insecurity, which we saw was a threat or is a threat to our identity if we do not put it in check. Then last episode, we looked into our past and how our past prepares us. One of the things that I spoke on last episode, and I want to continue to flesh out this topic, is in order for us to disconnect from our past, it is necessary for us to have a clearer view, a clearer picture of the person that we're going to become. We have to be very careful, however, to not just fantasize about it. And that's what episode 4 is about. Don't just fantasize. I wonder if you were like me as a child growing up saying, you know, one day I'm going to be this. Or when I grow up, I'm going to be that. Now, if you were anything like me, I felt like the world was my oyster. So anything that I saw, I wanted to become it. From a police officer to a fireman to an astronaut to a lawyer. There was so many different things that were presented to me, and I felt like I wanted to be them all. What about you? When you were growing up, what was the one thing that you said, this is what you were going to be? This was the goal of your childhood. Now, regardless of what that goal was, the question I want to ask you is, has that day come? Have you become what you once fantasized about? Okay, maybe that's too difficult a question. Let me ask it this way. Are you closer today to becoming that man or that woman than you were when you were a child? So what we'll find is that it is easy to fantasize about our future, but quite another thing to become it. Because fantasy only requires our imagination. But for our imagination to become reality, we've got to put in work. We have got to be willing to sacrifice. We've got to be willing to be different. We have got to be unsatisfied with what we've accomplished already, with the applause of people. And we have got to be willing to push ourselves into new normals in order to realize our fantasies. One thing that we will all recognize about 2020 was how drastic that year was than any other year in our life. And not just a year of us individually, but overall globally, our world was changed. Definitions, restrictions, freedoms were changed almost seemingly overnight. And what I find is that everyone did not suffer throughout 2020. You had people that prospered in 2020, and you had people that lost in 2020. You had people that their businesses closed down, and you had other businesses that made adjustments and their businesses thrived even in the midst of a pandemic. Here's one thing that I took from that year. In order to see a change in our years, we must first see a change in our days. If we want to be this great man, this great woman, this person of influence, this person of renown, this wealthy person, it does not just happen one morning when you wake up. It's not just going to happen overnight where you receive a notification from your bank that your bank account has now quadrupled. But it is the incremental changes. It is the consistency of the right habits, going down the right path, the persistence of our pursuit of our dreams that will one day show forth the fruit of our labor. What I'm saying is that it's one thing to say, in 5 years I will be. But it's another thing to say, okay, in order for me to be this in 5 years, what do I have to do today? In order for you to disconnect from the person of your past, you have got to be willing to confront your days, how you're using your hours and your minutes. Your vision, your fantasies are great. They're wonderful, but they will only remain visions. They will only remain fantasies unless you put forth the necessary work to make them a reality. One thing that you will notice is that for the 1% that are independently wealthy versus the 99% that have to work every day, is they're given the same 24 hours. Now, granted, certain people have different advantages and have been given different advantages in life to give them a head start. But let's keep it real. At the end of the day, wealth, poverty, success, failure, it is not tangible. It's a mindset. It has been noted that people that win the lottery are broke, within 3 years of winning $1 million. Why is that? It's because the money does not change the mentality. The money only exposes and gives opportunity to the mentality. And I've heard and had the opportunity to speak to many multimillionaires that said, even if they lost everything, they wouldn't be hopeless because their mentality has not changed. They know how to build wealth. As a matter of fact, most of them have given the story of failing over and over again in business, but it's their persistence in their days that eventually caused them to prosper. Don't just fantasize about the future version of yourself. Now, you have to first envision who that person is. You have to have an understanding and a vision. Okay, when I see myself, who do I want to be? How do I want people to receive me? How do I want to live my days? What type of, I'll use myself. What type of husband do I want to be? What type of father? What type of man? What type of pastor do I want to be? What type of entrepreneur? How do I want to help people? So it does start with the vision, but it does not end with the vision. Secondly, you need to be honest with yourself. Evaluation is not a negative thing, but you have to be honest in your evaluation. Okay, so this is the vision of who I want to be. And honestly, I'm not that person right now. So I have to be honest in evaluating what is the gap between the present version of myself and the future version of who I want to be. How big is that gap? Am I 2 years away? Am I 10 years? Am I 20 years away? Regardless of the gap, I have to now begin the work, taking action in the direction of your future self. Oftentimes, it's the gap between where we are and where we want to be that discourages and overwhelms many of us. But there's a saying that goes, the way that you eat a whale is one bite at a time. So think about it practically. You're not going to become a multimillionaire overnight. But what can you do today that will give you a step in the right direction, that will help you take a step in that direction? What can you do today that will provoke another action, another choice that will enable you and empower you to get closer to that goal? Do not despise the day of small beginnings. Everyone starts off the same way. We come into this world naked, and it is up to us to do something about it. Regardless of the head start that you may have or the deficit from which you're coming from, your days are up to you. If you're listening to me, I want you to really think about that. Your days are up to you. And if you are going to make your years differently, then it starts with you being responsible over today. The future is a prepared place, and those who will be successful there are the ones who prepare now. I said it in my previous broadcast, but I'm going to repeat it again in a little bit different vernacular, because I believe it is so necessary to changing our perspective and helping us become more responsible over the 24 hours that we're given. Today is yesterday's future and tomorrow's past. Think about that. We always want to put off for tomorrow. I'll do it tomorrow. I'll do it tomorrow. But when we understand that tomorrow is today, we've got to be responsible. Even if you are not able to accomplish everything that you may have on your list, try to accomplish one thing. I heard a great tip that I'm going to share with you. I'm going to call it the 5-minute challenge. And what this tip was that you set your alarm. Even if you feel overwhelmed, if you feel fatigued and you don't have the energy to really do everything that you want to do, put 5 minutes on a countdown clock and then dedicate to giving 5 minutes to one task, giving 5 minutes to one goal that you have. That's it. Just set off to give 5 minutes. What does that do? That tells your mind, all right, it's such a small amount of time, surely I can commit 5 minutes to it. But what you're going to find in this challenge is that the hardest part in accomplishing a goal is starting it. The hardest part in accomplishing the dreams, this vision of your future self, is starting on the journey. So if you can dedicate 5 minutes to your goal, set your alarm 5 minutes. What you're going to find is that when your alarm clock goes off, you're going to be motivated to give more. You're going to overcome the initial roadblock, and now it's going to be easier to keep going. Today is yesterday's future and tomorrow's past. So if you want tomorrow to be better, then it starts with today. This is so important because the future won't automatically happen. I don't care how passionate you are about it. I don't care how many dreams you have. I'm sorry if this offends you, But I don't care how many people want to encourage you or tell you what they see about you or how wonderful you are or how talented you are. If you do not take the responsibility to put work behind their encouragement, to put work behind your dreams and your visions, it will not happen. The future is a prepared place for a prepared people because it will not happen automatically. Think about it. How many of you made a New Year's resolution and you didn't follow through with it? Or you made the same New Year's resolution for multiple years? One of the things that I've learned is that when we come into a new year, it gives us excitement because we see it as the opportunity to wipe the slate clean. We see a new year as an opportunity for new beginnings, for new promises and new potential. Well, here it is, March of 2021. Do you still have the energy that you started off this year with in January? What about your resolutions? Are you still pressing on? Oftentimes, if we don't put the work and evaluate it daily, then it's going to lose effort, it's going to lose steam, we'll lose momentum, and ultimately we'll stop. It's not enough to fantasize about it, but become it intentionally. Did you catch that? Intentionally become it. That means when you wake up in the morning, you need to make sure that you remind yourself of what you are going to accomplish that day. You got to remind yourself of what your goals are for that day. Let tomorrow worry about itself, but today I've got to be responsible to accomplish this one thing. I've got to be responsible for finishing this one task. Be intentional. One thing that I wrote on my son's board for him to remember every day, and I think it's be beneficial for you to hear it as well. I shared with him something that I told him to write down and keep it on his board to remember and to recite daily. And it's simply this: poor people do what they want to do. Rich people or wealthy people do what they have to do, even when they don't want to. Let that sink in. The premise of it is intentionality, and that I will not allow my future to be held hostage by my feelings. I will not allow my future and my vision and my goals and my dreams to be held captive by my motivation, by my circumstances. But daily, I'm doing one thing. Now, if you can get to two things, then you're ahead of the game. But if you can commit to one thing, and then when you feel low in energy and when you feel demotivated, if you can commit to the 5-minute challenge to do one thing, you're going to see yourself being more responsible and being more fulfilled in your days. And then the consistency of your days will result in better years. This was somewhat of a challenge to you today to not just fantasize. It's easy to fantasize. We get around people that fantasize. It's encouraging, and sometimes it can almost be even overwhelming sometimes to fantasize with other people about who you want to be and what you're going to accomplish. And yeah, we're going to do this. And it's always easy to find people that will fantasize with you. But when it's time to put in the work, oftentimes you may find yourself alone. But the goal is not to just fantasize about who you want to be, but to be intentional about doing it. As always, I want to end with a declaration and a word of the day. Your declaration is this, and I've given you a couple if you were paying attention, but one declaration that I want to make sure you leave here today, if you were daydreaming through this entire podcast, I want to make sure that you're listening to this one declaration, that you hear this one thing. Are you listening? Hey, do I have your attention? It's simply this: my tomorrow depends on my today. don't waste it. Now, I don't know when you're listening to this podcast in your day, but you've got to be intentional. Don't allow the fact that it is 7 p.m. or maybe it's 3 p.m. or maybe it's 8 p.m. and you're at the end of your day, mind you, to say, I'll just write it off for tomorrow. No, do one thing before you close your eyes tonight. Why? Because your tomorrow depends on your today. Don't waste it. Your word of the day is enervated. E-N-E-R-V-A-T-E-D. Enervated. It means without vigor, force, or strength. We have to make sure that we do not fantasize, but that we are intentional. The reason why is that you will never reach the goals of your imagination being enervated. Do something different today. We all have days where we feel enervated. We all have days where we feel lethargic, unmotivated. But if you allow that to hold your dreams hostage, there's no one to blame but you. You are responsible for defining you. You are responsible for who you will become. So get pumped up. Get charged up. If you're feeling innovative right now, listen, change your environment. If the sun is out, go get some vitamin D. Change your location. Do something different. Put clothes on. Whatever you need to do, because your tomorrow is depending on what you do today. Your future is not waiting on you, but it's right now. So prepare now so that you can be the person you were intended to be. I hope this podcast encouraged you, strengthened you, challenged you, and I wanted to make sure to give you some pragmatic steps to help you not just theorize, but to actually realize who you were meant to be. I want to encourage you, if this blessed you, if this strengthened you, if this challenged you, to download it, leave me some notes, and share this podcast with someone else. Someone else that might be caught with their heads in the cloud need to be woken up out of their dreams so they can get to work and becoming who they really want to be. This is my time. I'll see you next time on Why Me with Teray Deaver. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Why Me podcast with Teray Deaver. Make sure to subscribe, download, and share. Let him know what you think in the comments and connect with him on IG at Teray Deaver.